And I'm like, wow, difference in culture, difference in how we speak to our parents, difference in what we share and keep to ourselves. And I guess, um, yeah, I think those are like the highlights. But yeah, it's been funny. But
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast and yet another episode of the International Student Diaries series. Our today's guest is someone whose story embodies courage, adaptability, and transformation. Meet Gugulethu, a dynamic young woman originally from South Africa who started her journey as a mathematics teacher shaping young minds in South Africa until she decided to take the bold step of moving to the United States as an au pair. Her story is full of resilience, new experiences, and bridging two different cultures. I am super excited to see what she has today to share with us about her journey, and I'm sure each one of you can learn a lot from it. Make sure to stay tuned until the end of this episode to listen to her life story and learn more from her experiences. Hello, Gugu. Welcome to my podcast. It's such a pleasure having you on my podcast today. Super excited for all the guests to hear your story. And I want to start right from the beginning of your life back in South Africa, where you were a mathematics teacher. So, tell me as to why did you decide to become a mathematics teacher in South Africa and how common a career path is it for anyone who's living in South Africa?
hi, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. I feel so honored. So I think let's just start with the last question. I think it is quite common for there's quite a lot of teachers in South Africa. A lot of them unemployed, unfortunately, because we don't have a lot of infrastructure in terms of our education system. But I don't think we have a shortage of teachers specifically who are ready to work. That's what I mean. So how did I become a teacher? So it started like I think I was in grade 12, so like the last year of high school. And I was busy applying to different universities and also applying for scholarships slash bursaries. And it was one of those like, I'm not 100% sure what I want to study, or like, when they say, what do you want to be? Um, until like I came across this application for a scholarship called Jake's Farewell Fellowship. I know that might be difficult for some people to say. And also in the midst of that, I had like amazing teachers myself. And one specific teacher asked me, instead of what do you want to be, because I couldn't answer that question, it was more like, what problem do you want to solve? Like, if you could pick a problem that touches your heart, that you're passionate about, and you want to lend a hand in making better, what would that be? So, a lot of the things I was talking about at the time were centered around education. So, I knew that, okay, I'd like to be in the education sector, but I wasn't sure about being a teacher at all. I was thinking, like, I'm going to be Minister of Education. I'm going to be a principal one day. That's what I wanted to be. And then specifically my maths teacher, I was telling him all these ideas and he was like, he kind of humbled me, which is great. I needed that. He was like, how, a lot of these people that make decisions at the top, as we say, those decisions affect people at the bottom. And in this scenario, the teachers are at the bottom. So how are you going to know what decisions or what changes to implement if you don't know what it's like to be, I guess, at grassroots level? And I was like, wow, okay. I love that. I love those thoughts. And that's where I was a little bit more open-minded to becoming a teacher. I was going through the process of attaining this scholarship, Jake's Travel Fellowship, because I had to do the application, went through an interview, and we went to selection camp, and everything at the time was like teacher, 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 and kind of scared me a little bit. I really was not sure about that. But over time, the scholarship sort of developed. Yes, we want you to be a teacher, but you can also be an educational leader. So there was provision for that, or social entrepreneur within the education space. So it really grew. My mind expanded. I love being in the classroom. I love teaching maths. But being a teacher specifically in its holisticness can be really overwhelming, like in terms of administration, in terms of being the parents to kids who might not have parents who parent, if that makes sense. Discipline issues and other stuff, management issues. But if I could just bring it all down to let's just go teach a lesson, I love that. But I still have all these aspirations, not so much minister of education anymore, because I don't want to play the whole political game. Sometimes it gets sketchy, but definitely in the more educational leadership space, and specifically math education, because that's what I'm passionate about.
Wow, that was such a well-rounded, elaborate answer. And I love the fact that you mentioned you wanted to work at a grassroots level before, going and exploring the higher positions. And I'm definitely sure you're going to make it there one day if you wish to be the Minister of Education or the principal. But it's amazing and very humbling that like your maths teacher told you that you should start where the impact is felt the most, which is at the grassroots level. And that is exactly what you did. Which brings me to my next question. You were a teacher and you did that job for 3 years teaching students. You loved teaching a lesson to students. Why was it that you decided that you want to transition and come to the United States, that too, to become an au pair? Something which is slightly similar to being a teacher, I would say, but yet very different and in a whole different country altogether. So, how was that decision reached? Was it impromptu? Was it planned? Tell us all about it.
Quite a few things, and specifically this year. I mean, there was a lot of, I'll just summarize it as chaos happening at the school that I was teaching at. It was really becoming a like mentally and physically challenging slash draining space to be in. So the first thing is I was ready to leave that school. Whether I was going to another school or not, didn't like it was just if it happened, it would have happened. But I'm very much an open-minded person. Try willing to try new things. I love traveling, and I do believe I try my best to be purpose driven. So I guess becoming an au pair and coming to the United States, okay, coming to the United States ticks the traveling box and the exploration. Being purpose driven, I get to live with the family, I get to look after the kids, and hopefully, they say an au pair is like an older sister or like a cousin, and I guess to some extent mentorship. It can also be tutoring and such because I do help with homework. And so that was the purpose in that. And I really just think because of how stressful this year specifically was and how everything played out, I really just knew that I would benefit from a change of scenery. Um, and that's not even to say that I've completely changed my entire life. I've literally just packed up my bags and moved, but I'm still doing my studies. I'm doing a Bachelor of Education honors degree, which is like a fourth year degree level, in mathematics education. So I'm still trying to see how can I become a better, more involved mathematics educator. What are the things out there, the best practices out there? I'm very much interested in that. I'm still studying. My final year will only be next year, and it's been interesting. I've been loving what I'm studying, actually, to be honest. And I would love and hope, fingers crossed, and everything, the universe works together, that after this qualification, I'll be able to do my master's degree and hopefully here in the States where I'm interested in educational leadership or, as I say, furthering studies in mathematics education, whatever is available to me. So yeah, that's been it. It's just been about trying something new, traveling experience, but still being purpose driven. And I don't think I've completely thrown my career or my life plans away. I'm just doing it differently.
Yeah, you're defining multitasking at its best. You're getting your degree, you're working as an au pair, and at the same time, you are thinking about what you want to do next, which is possibly a master's or maybe something else that you want to pursue in education. So it is exciting to see how ambitious you are at every stage. And like you mentioned, your love for traveling, we'll definitely come to that towards the end of the podcast and like how you've been exploring traveling in the United States. But before that, when you took this decision of like, I am going to the United States and becoming an au pair, what was the reaction from your friends and family back in South Africa? Were they like, wow, or were they shocked? And how did you manage to convince them that you were going to do this? Also, for our viewers who do not know what an au pair is, how would you break it down in simple terms and explain it to them?
Um, Great question. Lately, I guess whenever anybody asks me what an au pair is, I just say, you know what, it's just a glorified nanny. That's how I explain that. But I guess the finer details of it is really I well, I guess I met through an agency various families, potential families, right? And it's basically like a two-way interview where I'm asking them questions, they're asking me questions, and we're getting to know each other. And so this particular family that I'm staying with, the host dad, he sold me on Louisville. And I guess I should say shout out to him because he said I must send him the link to this podcast when it's done. So he completely sold me. The family is amazing. We get along well in terms of like how we can discuss everyday things as well as just like the deeper things like politics, racial issues, because also that's a big thing, right? I'm literally a person of color living with a white family. That's also like, so that was one of the conversations that I just loved how we gelled together. So, okay, so yeah, that explains what an au pair is and how I got here and the type of family I have. They're amazing people. I look after three kids. So then the reactions, I think obviously family will always have worries. My grandmother at some point thought that this could be a scam, and she totally wasn't wrong. That could have happened. I have heard some horror stories of people who haven't had great experiences with their host families, and they've had to rematch or they've just altogether decided to go back home. Um, I'm lucky that I haven't necessarily felt that way. I mean, there are frustrating times on the job, dealing with kids, no matter what age, it can be frustrating. And so with my family, it took a little bit of convincing. They already knew I was just generally an independent person because my family lives in one province of South Africa and I live in a totally different province, which driving would be like 12 hours away, flying like 2 hours away. So I was already living alone. I was already, I'm okay with being away from home. And so that, okay, I'll come back to the convincing part. My friends and colleagues, they were the more, I'm so happy for you, especially those who I worked with in the same school. They knew exactly how I was feeling because we were all feeling that, like I said, the chaos that we experienced specifically this year. So they were all happy for me. They were encouraging. They like helped me keep seeing the positive and the great potential experiences that I could have. So when it came to the convincing part, my host family, it was actually my host family's idea. They're like, we don't mind having a video call with your family or friends, anyone you want us to meet. so that they could just get to know us. I'm like, that's great. So I set up one video call, WhatsApp meeting with my family. Um, that was good. My sister was on that call, my grandmother was on the call, and my aunt was on that call because, WhatsApp can't have too many people on the call. But those are the people who, like, I guess, needed to be, whose not necessarily approval, but whose opinions do matter to me. And then a separate weekend, they met with a few of my friends as well, some work colleagues and some people that I've just met who are just really close to me as friends. And I think everyone we're all in the education profession. So that was really cool. Those conversations were great, lots of laughter. And that was really how the convincing happened. They just had to meet and experience what I've been experiencing through a phone call with my host family. And since then, it's been good. It's very difficult to call so many people in a week, but I do try randomly, periodically, have some conversations with friends, video calls, and I tell them how things are going. They tell me how things are going at home, trying to keep that closeness still, because just because we're 1,000 miles apart doesn't mean we can't still share and exchange experiences. So, yeah.
Wow, and I love the way you explain the entire process of you becoming an au pair for the host family and how it was like a two-way process, you getting to know them and them accepting you and reassuring you that they wanted to welcome you, and to have gelled so well with them is totally amazing. Kudos to you for that. Which brings me to my next question. That is, you came to the United States for the first time when you came for this job, correct? And that time when you landed here, what was your first impression of this country? And how do you think it was different from South Africa? Like, did that comparison automatically strike you when you landed here, or was it something that gradually started settling in once you got more used to your day-to-day things and you were like, no, it does look similar to my country, but there are a lot of things that are actually different. So what I'm trying to get to is, what were your first thoughts or impressions about this country when you got here?
Well, I would say first, um, okay, economically, oh, other than mathematics, I also teach economics. I don't really like it, but I have an economic view of things sometimes. So on an economic level, yes, South Africa would be considered a developing country, and America would be considered a developed country. Okay, and then obviously there's those things, the finer details in terms of like the scary things would be like, we don't have so much police brutality. Yes, there's police people who are corrupt, but obviously South Africa, in the United States, when you hear about um, a black person dying and it's from the hands of a police officer, that can be kind of scary. Um, but other than that, I guess some of the interesting things that I have found to be the same, I guess, I didn't like, we have a gas station, but we call it a garage back home, and a BP, right? British Petroleum. And I was so surprised that we were driving around Louisville one time and I saw a BP here. I'm like, oh my goodness, I thought this was a South African gas station only. I mean, I know the B stands for British, but I don't know. I just did not expect that to be here. And yes, fast food wise, both countries are pretty much the same. There are some differences, we don't have Five Guys. I kind of like Five Guys. Chick-fil-A, I really do like Chick-fil-A. But yeah, of course, we have your KFC or McDonald's. In general, we do have just fast food. One of the things that I had to get used to quite quickly was driving. Um, we do everything on the opposite side. So, driving on the left side, yeah, literally every single thing. At some point, I'm like, oh wow, so can I count myself as an ambidextrous driver? I can do it on the left and do it on the right. So that's been interesting. Um, of course, election-wise, that was one thing that happened recently within this month. And we also had our elections actually in South Africa in May, though. So one key difference as well is that South Africa has like 1,000 parties to choose from. And not
Okay.
exactly 1,000, it's just so many. You cannot keep up, you cannot name them all. And obviously, the major difference here in the States is that it's just a two-party system. I mean, there are independent candidates, but you're either blue or you're red, and that was like the biggest conversations I've been having. Um, yeah, I think those are the main things that I can think of in terms of differences as well as similarities and first impressions. I've gotten, I've, I've had the experience of Halloween. Halloween is not something a lot of South Africans celebrate. I think there are like very few neighborhoods, but you would not find them. And then right now I'm transitioning into Thanksgiving as well as Christmas. South Africans do celebrate Christmas, but of course the season is different. So I'm also experiencing a completely different season in terms of Christmas time. And I've never seen so many decorations in my life. So I think, yeah, that those have been like the highlights, lowlights, comparisons of the two countries that I've enjoyed so far.
Yeah, you put it in a very wholesome manner. You gave me your political views. You told me about how elections are held in South Africa. I didn't know about that there are like around 1,000 parties. Learned something new today. Also about the fact that petrol or gas stations are called as garage in South Africa, which is very different to what it is in America, and also about the ambidextrous driver. That's a term I'm going to start throwing around to every person who has driven in a country that is both left and right hand side driving. But well, thank you so much for putting that so wonderfully and explaining it to anyone who doesn't know anything about these two countries. I want to know, you have interacted with the children in South Africa, and now you're getting a chance to interact with the children in your host family in the United States. So, how has that experience been? Do you think like the core psychology of children is the same no matter what in South Africa or United States? Or would you say that there are some differences that you observe working or interacting with them on a close level on a regular basis?
Um, yeah, I think, let me say from a teacher point of view, first of all, you find that children all over don't always like to do homework. It can be a challenge as a teacher, it can be a challenge as a parent, it can be a challenge as an au pair to get any child, no matter what age, to want to do homework. I think that's something like it has no race, it has no culture. It's just what it is. Um, and I guess the key differences would be the fact that I was teaching a high school, so children between the ages of 13 and 18 and above. I say above because it's specifically the school I was teaching at was what we we called it a special school and a second chance school because I guess because of where some kids come from, their backgrounds not very favorable. So some kids have dropped out of school and then they're trying to come back to school. So we did have older kids who were above the age of 21. So I've mostly taught somewhere between the start of teenagehood and up to even up to into adulthood, but mostly just between 13 and 18. So right now I have I'm taking care of kids who are between the ages of 8 and 10, which is wildly different because that's what I consider from a primary school. Sorry about that. Primary school. and I'm still learning the whole difference between elementary and middle and whatever comes next. So we just have a primary school and a high school. So, so in terms of like, yeah, homework can be a challenge no matter what. But then there's also now the kids I taught were like I actually like I think in the entire school that I taught at, there were no white kids. It was all what we could consider to be colored, which would be mixed race here in America, as well as black children. So the interactions are different, how they talk to adults. Um, because there's also cultural things at play, right? A lot of times in African culture, it can be seen as disrespectful if a child looks an adult in the eyes, or I don't know how to explain that. But yeah, so now I'm in a space where it's not like I've never known white kids or white people, but I'm directly like at the point where I'm teaching or mentoring or au pairing. And of course, the conversations are different as well as they are younger, much younger. Um, seeing the communication between child and parent is also very different. But yeah, I guess it's just been a wholesome experience. I've been fortunate in my entirety of life, which is about 25 years. I've had a lot of international experiences where I've met quite a few different cultures, German, Greek, Indian, so on. So I guess this is just adding to my basket of experiences. Not to say that anything has been wrong on one side or good on one side or whatever. It's just been, this is how things are and this is how other people live, and that's okay.
You mentioned a point just now, which was that back in South Africa, there was this dynamic between a teacher and a student, where a student is not like very comfortable in looking the teacher directly in the eye, whereas in the US, maybe students are more upfront when they ask questions and much more confident, and it's maybe a cultural thing. And I related to it to a great extent coming from India. So I don't know if that is something that is just a cultural thing or it's the value system of that particular country. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I also had a follow-up question. You said that there is something different in the way they interact with their respective parents as well, right? So how would you say the difference is in terms of a South African kid interacting with his or her parents and an American kid?
I guess I could share more personal experience where, like, when I was a child, my mom would like, yo, if I if I on the day and with the friend next to me go up to her and say, "Hey mom, can I sleep over at friend's house or can friend stay over at our house?" On the day, she would upfront with the friend being next to me be like, "Hell no." You did not bring up such nonsense without prior arrangement, without prior agreement, prior consent, whatever you want to call it. You don't just randomly think you can just make up your own stuff like that. And then here, it's something I've actually like laughed with my host parents here, where the kids here have done exactly that. You know, like have exactly that. Oh, hey, dad, hey, mom, can I have a friend over? Yeah, today. Then it would be a yes. I think that maybe a few times I don't know if I've actually heard a no, but the fact that there's that confidence to do that, I thought I had confidence, but I was really just trying my luck. Having a friend near me kind of softens the blow for my mom to not be stricter than I think she would want to be. So that's like small things, right? And like growing up, if if I was dating or seeing a boy, it would be like top secret from any and every adult. We would like it would be like my mom, I think, actually had a talk with me once. She's like, only after, I don't know if she said after 18 or after I graduate from high school, but only after then because those two happened in the same year. And so it was like not even a point of discussion at all. It was focus on your books, focus, 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 be no boys, nothing. And interestingly here, um, it's more like an encouragement. So I do look after three kids, but like there's a fourth kid who's like from a previous marriage of one of the parents. So sometimes he's here, and he's much older. He's like 15 years old, and he has a girlfriend at the moment. And it was kind of interesting to like hear it being encouraged that he should be social, should the girl has come to the house before, and I'm like, wow, difference in culture, difference in how we speak to our parents, difference in what we share and keep to ourselves. And I guess, um, yeah, I think those are like the highlights. But yeah, it's been funny. But and it's not even just an American versus South African thing. It really is also like a black versus white thing because I think the more the the white people of South Africa, I think they're also like that in general. Not all of them. I can't speak for everyone, and I don't know all the finer details. But it's always been a thing of within the black community. These are the rules. These are the yeah.
Well, yeah, like from whatever you told me, and of course, of whatever I have seen in the United States, there's a lot more freedom in terms of making your own decisions, whether you're a kid or an adult. And for some reason, even back in my own country, which is India, we didn't give extreme freedom until a kid reached a certain age, which I resonated with when you said that your mom told you only after you maybe get this level of education or this particular age mark, if you cross it, then you're allowed to do certain things. So maybe it's just related to like a sense of responsibility that a kid will develop once they reach that age or something like that. But yeah, it's much more free in terms of that authority here, that kids can take their own decision, they can decide who they want over, when they want over, and maybe that wouldn't be well appreciated even back at my place in my country. If a kid would be like, oh, I want to get someone over for a sleepover, parents would say the exact same thing. So I totally agree with you on that. Coming to a very exciting part, which is traveling. I saw your eyes lit up when you mentioned traveling, adding to the basket of your experiences when you were speaking right now. I want to know that even after coming to Louisville, I follow you on your various social medias and I see that you are actively posting about all new experiences that you have, be it your first snowfall, be it going to a game that you just went recently. So why do you think it is so important to go out there and have these experiences? I know many people who go to a certain country for work and they just simply limit themselves thinking that this is just what it's going to be. I'm going to work, get home, and save money. They don't decide to explore out of their four walls or do something that is different. What makes you think that you want to do that and want to explore around you?
Um, I think that exploration is like part of the growth and development process, right? So I like if I do something, I'd like to be able to pinpoint what did I learn from it? How did I grow? How did I become a better person? So traveling for me is one of those things where I get to meet new people. I get to, like yourself, I met you, and we can have great conversations. We can learn about each other's countries, each other's experiences, and grow as people because when you're not exploring, when you're not putting yourself out there, and I'm not even saying that I'm an extrovert, I'm not an extrovert. I think I'm somewhere in the middle, but also just closer to the introverted side. Um, so when you put yourself out there, it's a chance to network. If you are all about business, then at least it's a chance to network and maybe you can get something, earn something from the other person or whatever the case is. And to learn something, to just be culturally enriched. That's like that's what this beautiful world is for, right? Why should you put yourself in a box when there's just so much out there to go out and, get excited? You know, I'm not like, so when I don't go out for too long, I kind of puts like a dampen on my mood. And I just don't want to ever, especially being in a new country where there aren't a lot of familiar people, it can get very lonely very quickly. So I'm really just being a bit intentional, uh, about just trying new things. And I've enjoyed every bit of it. At the moment, I'm literally just telling out people that I'm literally living my American movie. I've seen so many shows based in this country, and sometimes when I go do something, I'm like, I can see it in that movie, in that series. I'm like, this is me living my movie, guys. And I guess I don't want a whole year to go by, and I can't look back and have stories to tell. I'm very big on that. Telling stories or sharing experiences and just growing and developing and just being intentional while doing all of that.
Yeah, and I loved your honesty when you said that, you're being intentional about going out because moving to a new place comes with its own challenges like loneliness. It's not always like you know a lot of people, and it's necessary to put yourself out there and in those environments, even if you're an introvert, to make those new contacts. Not everyone would be the most helpful or most friendly person you will come across, but you definitely get to learn, and that is something which is extremely valuable, right? Like you know what not to do from next time onwards, and that's an important thing as well. So, speaking about your experiences, what would you say are your top three experiences in Louisville for 2024?
I'm gonna sum up. I'm just gonna say food because I do love food. And I've tried so many different things, I would not be able to name all of it. So that food in its holisticness. Um, Sightseeing wise, downtown is a very cool place to be. And because I lived in a coastal city, so occasionally I would go to Big Four Bridge because there's like, I think, a higher lake, so at least that's the closest I can be to water. And I don't know. I guess let's keep the third one open to whatever comes. But I've just really enjoyed like being able to see, how Halloween is experienced here, how Christmas is experienced here. I'm glad I've had a chance to meet with other au pairs and hearing about what they've done so far. And yeah, even meeting you, like people. Maybe the third thing should be people in general. Yeah.
Wow. And yeah, you will find the fourth thing because there are still like 1.5 months to go until 2024 is complete. And I'm sure you're going to get to live your perfect American movie moment when you go to New York or Chicago,
Yay.
whatever are your bucket list spots. But I was extremely happy to hear how coming to a new place, you have navigated a life for yourself where you're going out, making friends, eating new food, and at the same time, making sure that your academic path is on track, studying, looking for something to do in the future. Uh, to conclude this podcast, I want to know from you if you had to take two things from the USA to South Africa and bring two things from South Africa to USA, what would those things be? It's a little tricky question, but I just want to know like what would be a good mix match for you if you could get something from South Africa here and take something from here back to South Africa.
Yeah. So I don't, it is very tricky because I haven't, obviously, I haven't seen the whole of the United, or a large part of it. I've literally been in Kentucky for the past 2 months so far. Um, I think I have already mentioned, like, one thing about South Africa is that it's very culturally vibrant, and South Africans in general can make a joke out of any serious situation. It's not always good, but it kind of, it it's like a way of not making sure that we're always stuck on the negative. So I feel like I would bring South Africa's humor to the US. There's so much culture, so much vibrancy, and a lot of humor that I really miss from home. Sometimes I catch myself like I'm on a Instagram page that's only focused on South African stuff, and like I'll be maybe in the living room and like I'd laugh, and then I have to explain it. It's like, why am I laughing? And all these intricate things about South Africa. So I think South Africa's humor and its cultural vibrancy. And then from US to South Africa, I think not like I said, I haven't been throughout the larger part of America, so I don't know. But at the moment, I've experienced the Cheesecake Factory, and I'm like, how do we not have this? Like
Totally.
the when I had food from there for the first time, like I get that it's completely expensive. It's not a maybe it's not even a once a month thing. Maybe it's like a once every 2 months thing. It really is expensive, but their menu and the pictures that they have on their menu is just enough that I sent the link to my friends and family back home. I'm like, look at this. How do I decide? So I think that would be like something I wish South Africa could, or a chain or a franchise of the Cheesecake Factory could just land itself in South Africa. That would be great. Yeah, those are the things.
I think you totally stole the show by answering the Cheesecake Factory. I totally feel that it's one of the best restaurants I've been here, which has such an elaborate menu. Because usually, most of the places I'd go to will be like fries, burger, like the same two, three things. If it's like a Mexican restaurant, it's tacos or burritos. I mean, Cheesecake Factory has everything, like end to end, and you'll literally go into a choice paralysis when you are reading that menu, and you put it really well that you would like to take Cheesecake Factory back to South Africa. Lastly, I want to know from you that as an international student coming to the United States, there are many others who are coming here for education, for jobs, or maybe just to try, search for their next journey in life. So, what would you say is the certain important principles or rules that could help them ease into the process of moving to a new place or a totally different country? And what should they be, you know, open or receptive to when they get here?
Mm. Um, I would say I think just exactly that, like the word open. It's really just it's a mindset, like just being open-minded to receiving help from people who've been there before. Openness to receiving different points of views, and like you don't really need to fight about everything. It's part of like the journey of like, oh, this is how you think, this is how I think. Can we meet in the middle, or are we just going to be on opposite ends? And that's still okay. Um, I would say, um, yeah, I really think just the word openness and open-minded really just sums it up because you never know who you're going to meet. Be open to that. You never know what food is out there. Be open to that. You never know what you like or don't like until you try it. That's literally one of my things. I'm like, if I've never had something before, then I'm not allowed to say I don't like it until I've tried it. And then I have one specific friend who says he has like his own weird rule of three. He says you need to try something three times before you can conclusively say, because sometimes it's just that your taste buds are just getting a shock. Then it's like, can I acquire this taste? And then after that, it's like, okay, this is yes or this is no. So that's a little bit of advice that he told me that years ago, but I've carried it through my life. So like try something three times. Or maybe if you feel really strongly about it by the second time, you will know. But don't knock it till you try it. I think that's it. That's the saying. So yeah, I've said a lot. Like sum it up: openness and open-mindedness. That's really just it.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing this piece of advice. And I think it can go a long way to just be open and receptive to whatever is coming your way and not just dismissing it without giving it a try, be it anything you're eating or an experience, or even if you're trying out something academically. Thank you so
Mm.
much, Gugu. It was a super fun time talking to you, getting to know you more. And definitely, I'm going to include all your social media links below so that whoever wants to get in touch with you, follow you, and share, look at all the content that you're sharing on social media, they can also live the US dreams through you. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Literally just, I did say to you earlier that we were having dinner. It was a little bit later than usual. So like at some point I'm like asking, because I didn't have my phone, it was upstairs charging. So I'm like asking my host parents, I'm like, what's the time? At that time I still had like 20 minutes. And they were looking at me like, why am I so curious about the time? I'm like, look here, my friend Shreya has a podcast and she's asked me to be on it. I've watched a few. I was explaining the podcast that I've seen so far. And then I mentioned the Navy SEAL one that I still need to watch. And I'm like, I really think she just meets new people that she finds interesting. And you know what? I've made the interesting list, and this has made my day. So yeah,
I bet anyone who's going to listen to this podcast, you're going to be on all of their interesting lists because of everything that you have shared today. And I can't wait for everyone to, listen to this podcast and for you to share it with your host family who must be eagerly waiting for you to, talk
yeah,
on this podcast and also listen to what all you have spoken about them, whether it's good.
yeah. I'm pretty sure they're gonna get back to me on this. Thank you so much.